more that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.
All right. Welcome, everyone, on our social platforms. It's delightful to have you here. Talking about a very popular, frequently discussed topic today, this subject of unseen effort when recognition isn't extended or provided, particularly in a workforce, but this can be also in families and in other places. When recognition isn't extended or utilized in interpersonal interactions, that we can observe people less engaging or withdrawn. Very interesting topic from Brenda at B Branding for us to talk about today, which is going to lead us into some areas about why we use recognition in, let's say, some treatment approaches to people that live with very challenging behaviors and conditions, and we're trying to support them re-enter community and engage the world constructively. When people can benefit from recognition in the workforce or in the family, and what happens when you don't do it. And oh, by the way, are there people who may not thrive on, let's say, recognition in the common sense, when someone is highlighted or spotlit for a moment, and as a result, they're uncomfortable with that. I've certainly seen that too. So, welcome to this discussion this week about unseen effort and what happens when recognition or lack thereof results in a lack of engagement. First, I'd like to set some terms around the word. What do we mean by this subject of recognition in the sense that we're discussing? And when we're talking about recognition, I would say we're talking about someone being seen, someone being heard in a way that they feel is truthful, and someone who's understood, that we're recognizing that their presence, their identity, their effort, their behavior, their conduct, their activity is something worthy of attention. This is a strategy that we use in crisis de-escalation, crisis negotiations all the time. It goes by a different word. We call it validation. We want someone to know that they're seen, heard, and understood. And it is particularly useful in the crisis context because in the crisis context, people are animated in their behavior and their thinking to be heard very often. The motivation of getting louder or being at contact distance with someone with a lot of emotional intensity is to be heard. And when we extend recognition to that other person, that their investment in that is has paid off and they have our attention, they are more inclined to de-escalate as a result. So I would say in that sense that we don't seem to question the value of recognition, and I'm using that synonymously with validation from the crisis context. We don't seem to object to it under those conditions. I think we would agree there. Everyone agrees, generally speaking, that when we're engaging with someone and there is a desire to reduce tension, slow things down, and resolve a situation amicably, that recognition is an extraordinarily useful and fundamental tool in those conditions. If it works there, why wouldn't we use it in our homes, our schools, and in our workplaces? The research, particularly in the West, on just on the employment nexus to recognition, making sure teams are properly recognized, making sure certain groups within the organization are properly recognized is overwhelming. And of course, there's an equal amount of content out there about recognizing people for things worthy of recognition, not necessarily recognizing people for things that would cause them to feel shame or less than, or that recognition is destructive. The recognition has to be in the service of something good. But isn't it easy when working in a group of people, particularly if you're a leader, if you're a supervisor, if you are a manager, to not necessarily take time to recognize someone's contributions, even if they're not, let's say, perfect or completely aligned with the task. I have found it particularly useful, even if someone is making a mistake, to recognize something that's going on in the mistake that can still be celebrated. Look, I see the effort you're putting into this. I completely appreciate the amount of energy that you're investing in this task. It's noteworthy. Now, they may be doing something that's counterproductive, but I'm recognizing the effort. Why would I do that? Well, if I have to talk about precisely what they're doing, what better way for them to hear what's coming next if I start by recognizing the things that are being done well, however unintentional they may be in their accuracy or their value. So I'm recognizing someone's effort. What about occasions where in our own family we take for granted certain role responsibilities? You know, that's a reasonably big deal in my home, and I'm not proposing that we're doing that perfectly, but everybody has roles here at the Prisco home, and there are certain things that I just do, and there are certain things my wife just does, and I have to say that I do make a point. I do make a point of saying things that recognize their consistency in doing the thing that's part of their role. I don't just assume that because it's their role, I have my role, you have your role, I do this thing, you do that thing, therefore we never recognize each other. I do my best to recognize things that are done even on a routine basis. And why would I do that? Well, I'm a person, like the great Dr. Brian Zolnikoff says, I like to live my message. So if I'm in a treatment setting and I learn that positive appraisals of appropriate behavior, we call those positive verbals and positive nonverbals. If I know that positive appraisals of appropriate behavior incentivize people to keep doing that behavior, which is the anchor of this talk about recognition today, if I know that's the case in the data, why the hell wouldn't I do that at home? Hey, sweetheart, thanks for cleaning your room. I appreciate it. It's great that it looks so good and that door can stay open and that I don't have to worry about guests coming over and seeing into your room. Because if you yet met my youngest daughter and you ever saw her room, that example would make a lot of sense. So recognition, another way of considering recognition is to consider it in the social learning term sense, a positive appraisal of appropriate behavior. And what do we know about those things? We know that certain numbers of positive appraisals of appropriate behavior assist people in reducing length of stay in a treatment setting and increasing their ability to maintain tenure in community. And if we know it works there in the research, you can rest assured that when you do these things at home, when you do them with your kids, there are going to be benefits that impact not only the short, but the longer term. by extrapolation. If I mention to a youngster with some degree of certainty and frequency a positive appraisal of an appropriate behavior they do every day, they're going to feel something if I have to provide some feedback or discussion when it's not produced, or if something the opposite of that is produced. They're going to have a marked distinction in their experience of what I'm talking to them about. If I'm routinely known for providing positive appraisals of appropriate behavior, you can bet that if I have to describe a negative appraisal of an inappropriate behavior, that's going to feel and be experienced very, very differently, with a lot of weight from someone on the receiving end of it. So, recognition has extraordinary power in its influence with human beings. Now, there are some cultures that, let's say, have a very, very different reaction to the recognition phenomena. In many cases, these are groups of people, perhaps you know them, where their family of origin and family systems truly cherish humility, not being central in the conversation, not being part of the spotlight, and the use of open recognition with those people, generally speaking, is not received well. You might have to do the recognition privately with someone like that who has a cultural aversion to public expressions of recognition. I've done that a few times where I thought I was doing something meaningful to someone, and in my public celebration of them within a group of people, their experience of that was just that it was not comfortable. And it would have been much better if I pulled them alone and say, hey, I wanted to do this publicly, but I know that that's not comfortable for you. So I'm going to recognize you now. I'm going to let you know how important your work has been to this project and to me and to the work we're trying to do here. And I'm telling you that privately because it's the truth and you need to know. So your work is valued, you're valued, and thank you. Organizations where things like this are important and a priority, we don't see a lot of turnover. There's some very interesting work that I was exposed to regarding things that make people stay within a team or within a workplace culture. And they have to do with attributes like purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And when you don't have those things, because let's say the personality of the manager or the supervisor is constantly undermining it, we see turnover in those environments. When someone is enabled to pursue mastery of the thing that's important to them, and they're recognized for their progress along the way, you're going to see a lot of value out of that person for the group and for the organization. People thrive on it. I do. I'm the first guy to tell you that sometimes I have to go to people close to me just to touch base and say, hey, I just want to know, have you witnessed what I've been trying to do? I just want to make sure it's not being overlooked. And sometimes that may sound like, this isn't easy. And there are times where I certainly, most of the time I don't do that. But if I'm doing something that's a big undertaking and someone close to me is just kind of taking for granted the thing I'm doing, I'll correct that if I experience them taking it for granted, like I'm supposed to be able to deliver these Herculean efforts all the time, every day. I'd like to believe that I have a lot of patience and a lot of resilience in the face of some deeply personal and intimate kind of suffering, as well as the suffering of others. But when I'm doing something, if I'm at something for a while and it's a pretty intense effort, If nobody's recognizing it, I'm going to go to my creator in prayer about it, of course. But I'm probably going to go to the person and say, hey, I just want to make sure that you're aware um, of the effort that I'm investing in this. I want to make sure that it's properly valued. Can we talk about that? You may not agree, but it was Marshall Rosenberg who made, let's say, one of the biggest gifts that could be made to the interpersonal communication space, and that is that people have an ability to articulate what their needs are. I have some needs here that I need to share. Different than wants. They have to be accurate. They have to really truly be aligned with what needs can be. But that's the deal. In other words, if we know that human beings thrive on recognition, particularly in Western culture, and if you're a personality that needs that because of your upbringing and your conditioning, I don't see anything wrong with letting a supervisor, an intimate partner, a friend know, hey, I'm a kind of person that thrives on being seen once in a while for their efforts. So I'm just going to make you aware of that. And I don't see how that's bad. To those who would say you don't need to do that, there are some high functioning personalities, high performance personalities that don't need that anymore. And in some areas of my life, I can really resonate with that. I'm a fairly adept musician. I don't need to play in front of other people to be happy about playing music. I think it was Miles Davis who said, in response to the question, if you weren't playing in front of an audience, would you still be playing? And he said, of course. I have music in my head all the time. I can't get it out. And the interviewer said, you hear music all the time? He says, I'm hearing it right now. In other words, Miles's commitment to playing music was to play music. He didn't need recognition for that. I have a similar approach to my own music. I'm not afraid to play in public. I've played in public many, many times in front of a lot of people, executing some, technically hard to do things that if I were anxious, it would sound ridiculous. But I don't have a need to be in front of people to play music. So I don't need that. But in other areas of my life, I do need recognition. And where I do, I'm willing to at least let the other person know what that need is. So I put all of this in the first person context to try to help you consider that there's nothing wrong with wanting to be recognized. Nothing. And there's definitely nothing wrong with extending it to other people, to recognize them for what they're doing. It's a painful silence to be an important person on a team doing important work, and people they're either taking that for granted or not seeing it. And it would be very unusual for someone not to be really upset about that in the process. So when we think about positive appraisals of appropriate behavior, they're anchored in the research to work. Another way of thinking of a positive appraisal of appropriate behavior is to think about recognition. I want to recognize something that's good in another human being. There are reasons that it's very beneficial for the workplace culture, the person who's hearing it. And it's also good if you need it to be able to describe that that's a need of yours. So I recognize you, and I hope you recognize me. And I hope you recognize the value in this time together that we try to share every Tuesday and Thursday. On Tuesdays, we do all socials. On Thursdays, we do a presentation specific to the Jumpstart Mastery Network. I'd like to thank all of you that have come to visit and comment and like. And if you haven't yet, join us at jumpstartmastery.com. It's completely free, and you'll be in a network of professionals from public safety, behavioral health, workplace violence prevention, youth and family services, juvenile justice, adult corrections, and a host of other sectors that are interested in how we support people in crisis. Thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all well. Take good care.